Hi, I'm Neil Bergman.
And I'm Hayley Bergman. Over the last 10 years, we've helped thousands of fitness professionals to get qualified, learn with simplicity, and coach clients with confidence.
We're the first to say that learning and being a FITPRO doesn't have to be hard work, and that with the right structure, support and resources, you can become a confident and knowledgeable fitness professional that is dedicated to more.
So how do you learn, qualify and kickstart as a FITPRO? This is the FITPRO Sessions podcast with Parallel Coaching.
Are you overwhelmed with your revision or studies? Hi, I'm Hayley from Parallel Coaching, and today we're going to explore all about overwhelm. Neil and I recently done a really good live chat on our Facebook page whereby we were talking all about overwhelm in your revision or in your studies, and we gave some really good tips to help you overcome that overwhelm, but also to take immediate action in your revision and start making a plan forwards. And I know this will be really beneficial for you no matter how big your overwhelm is right now in your studies. So without any further ado, let's dive straight into today's live session.
Good morning, how are we doing? Neil and Hayley here from Parallel Coaching.
Hi.
Drop a comment below if at the moment or you have ever felt overwhelmed, flustered or frustrated at your studies.
I like that point. Or have ever.
Or have ever.
So
completely.
if you've ever been at that place whereby you've had that frustration, it doesn't have to be revision. It doesn't have to be anatomy and physiology revision. It could be that going through worksheets, portfolios. It could be any studies.
Just put your hands up. I'm going to put my hands up. Drop a like as a kind of a show that you've ever been overwhelmed by your studies as a way of like raising your hand. I'm going to put my hand up.
Yeah, hands up.
I'm going to say I get flustered by my own progression of studies on a daily basis. There we go. But it's interesting because over the last couple of days, Hayley specifically, and I've listened. Okay, you go for it.
I've had lots of phone calls whereby people are seeming to be really overwhelmed and flustered by what it is they need to do in their revision. And it's usually set out by the fact that they've made an expectation of what they thought they would achieve, and then they ended up spending a long time on one particular area trying to dive in really deep into a knowledge without actually covering everything they need to, which makes them feel more overwhelmed, more flustered.
And this isn't uncommon.
No.
This isn't uncommon. I've seen this for years and years and years. So, for example, if you take the level 2 anatomy and physiology or level 3, the first module is all about the heart, cardiorespiratory system, correct? Yeah. And then you've got 7 other modules after that. So things like the joints, the skeletal system, the muscular system, the endocrine system, the nervous system, and so forth. But the amount of learners that we've come across that spend the whole of the first, say, week doing all of the heart and cardiorespiratory system, and then they test themselves on that, and then they get overwhelmed by how much they have or haven't remembered. And then they go back and almost repeat that same week again and go over the same topic. And before they know it, 2, 3, 4, maybe even 5, 6+ weeks have gone past and they're still on the first module. And then you feel overwhelmed and you think, well, if it's taken me, let's just say 5 weeks to do one module, and
it's going to take, how many weeks would that be? 40 weeks to do 8 modules. Yeah. And there's this like huge like overwhelm or epiphany of like, I can't do this. This is intense for for 4 weeks, 5 weeks, let alone for another 40 weeks. I can't keep this up. But the problem with that format is that if it did take 40 weeks to cover it all, then it's been 35 weeks since you went back to the heart.
Completely.
Which is a long time.
And so my advice, like straight up, like my first tip here would be, it may feel that at the end of the cardiorespiratory system, at the end of that first module, that you don't feel like you know everything or you can't recite it or recall every single part of it, and that's okay. Yeah?
Absolutely.
You might not be able to name or pinpoint certain things or pull out certain bits of knowledge and certain facts. That's fine. What I'm going to advise is like go on to the next module, go through that in its entirety, and just know that it's not all going to go in first time. Yeah. And then keep going through it. So, for example, you might then go through all 8 modules in just a short couple of weeks. But the beauty of this is what you learn in a later module also helps fill in the context or the missing gaps from a previous module.
Yes.
So just because you, for example, haven't learned everything about the heart and cardiorespiratory system, and then you move on to the, let's just say the nervous system, when you learn something in the nervous system, it will help fill in some of the gaps or understanding from the cardiorespiratory system. Because although they're not directly linked in the same module, and they're two different systems, but they are intrinsically linked by how they operate and work together.
Yeah, and you'll find that as you're going through it, like you say, you're picking up knowledge as you go through, but you'll probably find that whereby you've spent, I don't know, 5 hours in that week, and then you've ended up dwindling because you're like, God, I've got to redo it. And this usually starts because I ask somebody, so tell me, how do you revise at the moment?
Yeah.
And they start talking, they go, well, I aim to do 3 times a week, and then I hear all the different things that are happening in their world, which are real things like work and family and kids and everything else, right?
Completely.
And then they go, and I started off really good, and then I'd done the first module, I'd done the first section, but then I realised it wasn't really going in, so I redone it, and now I can't, like last week I didn't do any. So it's kind of dwindled over time.
It loses its
it's not as intense, even though you were doing it. And the other side of that, as you're sort of learning each of those different sections, if you try and test your knowledge by just saying, what did I, like a big open question of what do I remember from that whole hour video. This is the struggle,
isn't it? This is the struggle.
You can't reflect it like that. And it's the same as, like, you know, with a kid at school, and they come home from school and you go, so what did you do today?
Nothing.
I don't know.
I don't
Nothing. It's that much of an open question. Whereas if you said, I noticed that you done this particular task at school. Do you remember what colour the spider was you made? It's like, oh yeah, the spider was black.
I remember doing that.
They remember something of it.
So what you're saying is,
it's specific.
if you ask an open question, let's say for example you do a couple of weeks on the cardiorespiratory system and you ask a big open question of like, what do I know about this? The brain ultimately doesn't know where to look or pinpoint. It's like walking into a barn with loads of hay and you're trying to find the needle in the haystack to soothe your emotions, but also soothe your needs, to get your needs met, and say, I'm looking for a very particular needle that tells me that I know the cardiorespiratory system.
Yes.
And trying to find that needle can be incredibly tough. However, if you asked a clear, closed question, very specific, about a very particular topic of the heart, okay, for example, like, can you name the 4 chambers of the heart?
Yeah.
Your brain now goes into this big filing cabinet, pulls out that and goes, okay, so these are the 4. It's like asking Google. Okay, it's like asking Alexa. You've got to ask a very specific question. I think that's one of the issues. Is I've spoken to a number of learners, mainly online this week, in exactly the same position, and they're questioning their ability to like remember and recall and learn information. Yet they're asking questions that are so broad. Even the brainiest of people are going to struggle.
Yes, it's too much inside that. So that's part of combating that overwhelm. And then also having that clear routine will really help you so that you can stay focused. Plus, if you know you're moving through the modules and the content, like with momentum,
good, doesn't it? It feels
you can
good.
be like, I'm looking forward to the next week. I get to go on to the next couple of modules, or I get to go on to the next 3 modules. And you've got that structure in place. And it kind of pulls you through rather than, oh, I've got to go back through the same thing. I might not be able to find time this week.
I know it's like easier said than done in the moment, okay? But what advice would we give a youngster if they weren't picking something up? And, you know, it would be repetition, try again and keep trying until you get it right.
That reminds me of when I was a kid. I had to throw a ball against the wall loads because I couldn't catch.
But that doesn't necessarily mean. So that's for belief, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's for belief. And so we keep trying, going back through the cardiorespiratory module. What happens if we just tweaked this a little bit? So rather than say, keep trying again, and I'm a big fan of repetition is the mother of all skill, like I'm a big fan of this, but rather than say, let's keep repeating the same module, why don't we repeat the act of revising?
Nice.
So what I mean by that, instead of going, right, I can't quite get the cardiorespiratory system, I'm going to keep trying until I get it right. Drop that as a belief and say, right, I'm going to keep trying, but I'm going to keep trying revising, and I'm going to place revision in different areas.
Yeah.
My other other tip would be, inside that trying, is have a very clear warm-up to your revision.
Nice.
Okay, and what I mean by that is sit down for even a minute or two as the beginning of your revision and write down, right, what am I going to study today? I'm going to study the cardiorespiratory system. I'm going to read pages 90 to 95 of my manual, and I'm going to listen to the boot camp for 10 minutes, for example, or I'm going to complete a cheat sheet. And you go, cool, now your brain has clear focus on where it wants to go. You go and do page 90 to 95, watch your 10 minutes, do your cheat sheet or whatever it might be. And then at the end, leave yourself like 3, 4, 5 minutes and write down, right, what are my top 1, 3 or 5 key things I've learned? What can I recall? What are my 3 to 5 key areas that I think, do you know what? Even if it was tiny, even if it was just like, for example, in muscle fibers, you might just write type 1 muscle fibers. You might not write anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or you might just say the heart is left of center. You might not write anything else. That's fine. You're just going to extract the 1, 3 or 5 things that you can take.
Yes.
And before you know it, you've got this really nice warm up, main and cool down to every session. But every session is about repeating revision, not repeating the same content.
Yeah, and how you do that revision will change within that as well. So, for example, if I wasn't learning how to catch the ball by throwing it against the wall over and over and over again in the same place, and I still wasn't learning via that, it becomes quite futile and quite boring to just repeat
And
it.
that's the
Whereas
idea.
if I started to play ball with someone else or change my method of learning,
Yes.
I actually now have a different way of learning and seeing like, oh, that's how you caught the ball. Maybe I could try it like this.
Completely.
And it changes. So as soon as you change how you're learning, it also can help. So maybe that's switching from reading to videos or videos to audio or using questions like cheat sheets.
Instead of manual to cheat sheet.
Yeah, exactly.
A couple of people saying on here they like the idea of the warm up, and I think it's key. Do you know, like if you went out for a really nice meal, you'd have a starter. There's your warm up, okay. And if you were gonna go all out on that meal, you'd have a dessert as well. So there's your cool down.
You always have dessert, regardless if it's all out. It's just
just to say, if you were going to do a really good workout or any workout, your advice as a FITPRO would say the warm up. Yeah, completely. So let's just look at that and say you would always advise a warm up and a cool down in a workout. But let's say, for example, your client had asthma, okay, and if they had asthma, you could say they struggle potentially with their breathing. Okay, therefore we need to pay kind of more extra care and attention to the warm-up in order to get the most out of a workout, and you might make some adaptations to your workout based on asthma. Now, I know this is kind of a tedious link.
No, I like it. I
Okay,
think I know where you're going.
but if we're struggling with learning, just like the client who has asthma struggles with running, for example, or cardio work, then we would have an extended warm-up. Maybe having an extended warm-up inside your revision is absolutely key. Maybe part of your warm-up in your revision is to sit down quiet for 2 minutes. Maybe your part of your warm-up is to listen to some music for 2 or 3 minutes beforehand. Maybe part of your revision is to do it in a totally different room. Maybe part of your revision warm-up is to get your brain into gear and planned, ready for the main of what's to come, just like the client that's got asthma would have an extended warm-up to get them prepared, mind and body, for what's to come.
Yeah, one learner done as part of it, she went, well, even before I've gone into anything that I've learned, so the first time she's come across, let's say, body in motion, first time she's ever done it.
Which is module 4 of level 3.
She goes, right, what do I already know as part of her warm-up? She goes, what am I expecting to know about body in motion?
Wicked.
And she just dumps it down on one bit of paper. Like sometimes it's drawings, sometimes it's words. She goes, I'm expecting something about planes of movement, something about joint action, and then like just scribble the bits down, but doesn't necessarily know much more else. Then she does the session that she's going to do for her revision, and then in the cool down afterwards, you're comparing the notes you had after to your pre-notes, and you've kind of gone, well done me.
The other thing, let's finish up with this. I bet you, okay, because I've listened to Hayley's a couple of calls from Hayley, and I've spoken to a few people already this week online. So it's Friday. We've spoken to well over a dozen people who are overwhelmed in their studies, and we've helped them. Now, when we have kind of, I wouldn't say quizzed on the phone, but we've spoken, we've explored what they do know. It's actually amazing how much you do actually know.
You know more than you think.
And I think we beat ourselves up a little bit too much. You know, the fastest road to disappointment is unmet expectations, and we expect ourselves to retain and recall and remember and learn and revise all of this instinctively. Yet for the vast majority of us, we haven't been in the classroom, a formal classroom, since, we were at school maybe 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years ago, depending on age.
Yeah.
And so we're putting all these high expectations and then being disappointed for the fact we can't meet our own expectations. But what's incredible is actually when we talk, you know an awful lot. You know an awful lot. And
I get that, because like I always say to you, like my memory's atrocious. Like,
but you've got like this bank of knowledge, and it's insane.
yeah, and I can't remember, like, say, how to get from one place to another. Geography's not good.
It's a true story.
Bearings not good.
It's a true story.
So I can't go from one place to another. But then actually when we're doing it, I'm like, oh, I remember we go this way.
Yeah.
I just needed it feels blank if I try and think about it in advance. And quite often when you're thinking about subjects in anatomy or whatever it might be, it feels blank if you look at it in advance of this great big option of information. Like you don't know where to go and access it in your filing cabinet. But if you had something to anchor that to, like an image or something that you could relate it to, you'd be like, I know what that relates to.
And it's amazing how much you do know.
You do know more than you think.
Boom. Let's see who's on here. If you are on here and this has been useful, even if I know there's a few people listening that have already passed their exams, but I know that in fact, the few people that are on here that have passed are also on the level 3 exercise referral course or another qualification that need a little bit of a boot up their ass for their studying. So has this been useful this morning? So we've got Yvonne on here. Paula says good morning and love the warm-up idea. I like that. Davina's on here, who's joining us for our new next PT course, which starts in November? October?
Yeah,
there we go.
October, November.
Good
End
morning.
Of October,
End of October. There we go. Yeah, Yvonne's on here. And she says remembering. Key to remember stuff is little and often. You know, I have to agree. It's like it's amazing. It's like the easiest bit of advice to give, but it's so powerful as well. It's almost more powerful than how easy it is, because if you were to place in, let's just say, a revision bout, a revision session, let's just say once every day, and you think, I can't fit one of those in every day, like your brain's just going to go crazy. But what if that revision bout was only 5 minutes? At the end of a week, you've done 25 minutes. And you might think, what can I learn inside 5 minutes? But inside 5 minutes, your brain could just be incredibly focused on learning one very specific thing. The thing with a long revision session is you're putting lots of information and lots of knowledge in your brain.
And also a long session, I don't know about you, but I would put it off.
But it's you've got lots of information coming in, and so it's hard to retain lots of information. What if you did lots of short 5, 10 or 15 minute sessions where you just said, right, today I'm going to learn one thing.
Nice.
Or today I'm going to learn 3 things. Or today I'm going to read 5 pages.
Nice.
And it was such a short session that you had no other distractions, and you could literally go, right, it was that short. I remember it because it was only 5 minutes ago that I read it. I'm going to write that key thing down, and
I'm going to come back to it next time.
I'm going to come back to it next time. Before I start my revision session, I'm just going to read my takeaways, and I'm going to do another 15-minute session.
And that's what Yvonne says as well. She says, I use a 5-a-day plan. So she focuses on 5 minutes today and spend 19 minutes learning. 5 muscles today, and then spend 19 minutes learning them 5 times a day. Next day I'll review and add another 3 to 5 more, and repeat. And the weekend review it all. So it just kind of keeps building it up.
Completely. So
but before you know, in 10 days you've done all 50 muscles.
Which is actually, like, if you think about training, you've got frequency and you've got intensity. So as frequency or volume goes up, intensity comes down. Or as intensity goes up, frequency and volume comes down. And there's an inverse relationship with training in the gym, and you know those are facts. So let's look at it. If you're going to place more revision bouts in, frequency and volume, then the intensity of those sessions, what you cover, how much you cover, the depth you go into must come down. Or you go the other route and you go, do you know what, I prefer to do more intense sessions whereby you might learn loads of information, but you'd only do 1 or 2 bouts per week. Now, for me personally, I think the frequency and volume outweighs going for the intensity.
Yeah, I do as well.
The frequency and volume is all about quantity and not quality. Yeah. And the constant repetition of short, sharp bouts makes a big difference.
And why is it in positively for you? Because it becomes something that you can do. Because you can turn around and go, I enjoyed that, I done that, I enjoyed it.
Lisa Clark put, eek.
She knew you were calling her out.
I can see. You're not the only one, Lisa. There's a couple of others on here. But yeah, like...
We'll have an eek from the others.
It's a nice little boot up the bum, right? So I appreciate that we're coming out the back end of lockdown. I appreciate that we have got the football and the Euros on, and the sun is out, and it's coming up to... But I know there's a few people that need a boot up their bum with some of their studies.
Yeah, and also a lot of people turn around and say they can't necessarily do much when it hits summer holidays for the kids. So if that's the case... boot up the bum firmly now over the next couple of weeks.
You can have it all done before the school holidays.
And then you don't have to worry about it.
And it doesn't go until September. A couple of people saying they've got their circuits paperwork ready to be posted. So
Lovely.
Just make sure that you've got the correct address.
Yeah, it's on the latest email I sent, or if you're not sure, text me.
Boom. And Nikki says, I love listening to a parallel revision podcast in my car and on my walks. What I love about the podcast and the revision boot camps more so is you can download it all to MP3 and MP4. So you could listen whilst on the go anywhere, which is pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah. Revise whilst you walk.
Julianne says, good idea, I'll try it. Good morning, Ray. Lisa says, I definitely need to get back on XREF. It's really straightforward. Just
pick it up.
Rather than see it as like you need to get back on it, which is the same thing we have the battle with our clients. Notice this, guys. Notice this.
I need to get back starting training.
I need to get back starting training. I'm going to kickstart my diet on Monday. It's the same conversation as I need to start my revision or I need to start my studies.
What would you tell your client?
What would you tell your client?
Start now.
Boom.
How do you start today?
Completely. So it's funny, isn't it, how we can keep one area of our life firmly controlled, and yet the same problem or the same thoughts, feelings and emotions crop up in other areas.
Yeah.
Food for thought there. Leanne says, I'm struggling with my level 3. I think that's A&P. What is the package I need to purchase for everything I need to know? That would be the level 3 Anatomy and Physiology Bootcamp. We'll drop a link below. What I love about that is it has all 8 modules. Hayley teaches. You get the cheat sheets alongside. There's loads of analogies, loads of metaphors, loads of stories in there that help you go, that makes sense.
But most of all, structure and focus.
Structure and focus.
And you don't learn any of the excess stuff that you need, that might be put in outside of what you need to know.
And what's more, you can do it all in under 8 hours. What? Yvonne says frequency is key. Yvonne says sun, where? Like we've
I'm
been
like bathing in the sun. My
we have
legs
been
are in
blessed
sun
with sun
roasting.
for we came home Monday late Sunday night and it's been sunny all week. Like it's been burning all week. It's been barbecue weather every day.
Yeah.
Not that we've had barbecues every day.
Not every day. We're just outside.
Not every day, but most days. It's been amazing. You need to move to the southwest. Helen says, I've got back on it again this week. I'm planning another couple of hours later. Wicked.
Lovely.
Nice.
Yes, you have, because you've been messaging me questions about it.
That's really
great.
smart.
Good.
Well, also, like when you're thinking about studies and you're looking at revision, keep it so simple that you're only going to focus on 1 or 2 things in every session. And you think, right, if you're going to do part of your coursework or part of your worksheets, just think, right, today I'm just going to do, let's break it down real simple, 1 question. And it doesn't become overwhelming. We don't need to look at a worksheet and go, oh God, there's 32 questions on here. Like, this is going to take ages. Let's say, for example, you said, right, I'm going to do 3 questions a day. And those 3 questions are going to take me, let's just say, 5 to 10 minutes. By the end of 10 days, you've done your worksheet.
Yeah. And that's the nice thing about the cool down
Whereas we could
part.
spend 10 days procrastinating
about
over
not doing it.
it.
Yeah, exactly. Which feels horrendous because you feel torn between the 2 things.
Completely.
You're always kind of like, oh, I've got to do that. But when you're, I can't remember what I was going to say.
I'm not too sure.
Doesn't
when
matter.
you're torn between 2 things?
No, before that. Doesn't matter.
I'm not sure, but Laura's on here. Good morning.
Good morning.
Paula's on here. She says Hayley is the best teacher.
Yeah.
I like that. She does break down. What I like about Hayley is, there's lots of things I like about Hayley actually.
It's good. Good job.
Is but how you do teach. You do make a really complex topic appear and sound very simple, but it's so convincing that people walk away and go, it's actually quite simple, because it still is complicated. All these topics, anatomy and physiology, could be taken to doctorate level, but how you relate it to certain things and stories and metaphors, you take something incredibly complex and you make it like just really straightforward, and you're like, it's kind of in there now, and it's helped so many people. And it's crazy. Like, we had a message on our Instagram this morning that I taught and Hayley taught back in 2010, a guy called Peter. And, he's still reaching out from 11 years ago because of something memorable that we did. Yeah. And I know that's the case.
That's what learning is, isn't it?
What was you going to say?
I love it. That was part of the strength of the cool down part of when you're doing your revision. So you do your warm up, do your main revision, then you do your cool down. In your cool down, you have the review process.
Yes.
And from that review process, it reminds you what to do the next session. So when you pick up the next session, you don't have to go back through all the content to find out what you learned, because your review process was that.
Perfect.
It chains on nicely.
There you go. Julianne says, I got one worksheet left of her GP referral case study to type out. Keep it really straightforward.
Julianne's in our support group for that. She's working with another training provider, but she's supported with us.
What I like about that is, so you can do, there's a couple of things here. So one, you've got the old exercise referral, which you can't do anymore, but we've got still people are on it. Then you've got the new long-term supporting clients qualification, which is the new one for exercise referral. But ultimately, we also do the resources. So we have a number of learners do, let's call it like the exercise referral bootcamp, so to speak.
Yeah.
So if you're struggling on that, there's a bootcamp there.
Which is what Julianne does.
Julianne says, are you both in the UK? We are down.
She's like, sunny?
Where? We are in, just outside Newquay, in a tiny little village. Everyone locally calls it a town, but I do my morning walk, and it takes me about 25 minutes to walk around the entire village.
It's not a town.
It's not a town. I grew up in Milton Keynes, which is, maybe that's the town, a city. They've always struggled, haven't they, in Milton Keynes? But we come from Plymouth, which is categorically a city. And that's massive, huge. Just our estate we lived on took me, 40 minutes, 45 minutes to walk around. And that was packed in amongst dozens.
There you go.
So yeah, we're down,
sunny here.
we're just outside Newquay, and it has been sunny all week. It's been amazing. There we go. Who else we got on here?
Lovely.
Laura says, let's get these questions
when
done.
struggling to get going, focus on how ace you will feel after nailing a bit of study.
Yes.
That motivates me to crack on, just like a workout. It's all about the post-workout buzz.
Completely.
Sometimes you don't feel like doing it, but afterwards you feel good for doing it.
A real big buzz from a workout also has key ingredients, doesn't it? It has a really good structured warm-up, which has a nice aerobic curve. It gets the mind and body ready. It gets you ready for what's to come. You perform at your best during the session, and you've probably got solid training systems. You've got a solid routine, clear structure, work to rest ratios. You know what you're doing. You know what resistance you're lifting. You know your time under tensions, yada, yada, yada. And you've got a good cool down with a good stretch. So notice there's good ingredients that go into a great workout. And in order to get a great revision session, there's ingredients that go into that as well. Okay?
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah. Yvonne is making my head swell even more. What? She said, the I am excellent. It's really weird reading that about yourself. She says, as a former trainer of teachers, I think I can spot a good one.
There you go. Nice. I like that. That's really nice.
Julianne says, I brought the bolt on. Looking forward to doing that once I've passed. So the supporting clients bolt on as well.
That's cool.
Nice.
Guys, I hope that's been useful this morning. Usually, like when we were thinking about like what we're going to talk about this morning, we kind of like went back through some of the questions we've had from you guys over the last 3 or 4 days, and it has really been around overwhelm and kind of frustration with studies. And kind of like final point would be like, you're not alone. And I don't mean it like we're here to help you, but actually you're not alone. Almost everybody studying gets those feelings or thoughts and emotions at some point. It's a bit like a roller coaster, isn't it? Some days you go, actually, I'm having a good day with my studies today, and other days you go, it was horrendous. So just know that you're not alone. I think the easiest way to do that is, if you're not already inside the inner circle, is to join the Facebook inner circle and know that you've got like 2,000 other FITPROs that have either recently qualified and passed, that have experienced your journey, or there's people in there, quite a number of people in there that are doing your journey at the moment. Yeah. And so you're equally not alone there.
Yeah, perfect.
Boom.
Good one.
We will see you bright and breezy on the next one. Drop any big takeaways below on this one as well. Like it's really easy, I suppose, to have us on in the background as you get ready for work and get the kids ready for school or whatever it is you're doing. Just drop a comment below and let us know, what's your big takeaway from this morning? If you were to take 1, 2 or 3 things away, articulate it. Drop a comment below, because that helps, again, take it from good entertaining to I've learned that and it's in here.
Yeah, nice.
We really appreciate that.
Good.
Outside of that, if you haven't pressed thumbs up and like, give us the arbitrary follow as well of liking it, because that just lets other people know that we mean business this morning. And we've sat here for half an hour giving some pretty cool value.
So we'll have your takeaways in the comments and a like as well.
And there we go, they're all coming across.
Wonderful.
Guys, we will see you bright and breezy. I'm going to go and sit in the back garden in the sun with a cup of coffee.
Why not?
We'll see you later. Bye.
Hi, I'm Neil Bergman.
And I'm Hayley Bergman. Over the last 10 years, we've helped thousands of fitness professionals to get qualified, learn with simplicity, and coach clients with confidence.
We're the first to say that learning and being a FITPRO doesn't have to be hard work, and that with the right structure, support and resources, you can become a confident and knowledgeable fitness professional that is dedicated to more.
So how do you learn, qualify and kickstart as a FITPRO? This is the FITPRO Sessions podcast with Parallel Coaching.